Hey, this is Amanda from The Fundamental Home, and I'm here with you guys doing part 4 of our video on saving money on your groceries. So this week we're doing part 4 of my series. All of this stuff comes from my blog post series, How I Feed My Family of 5 for $100 every month. Again, as I've said on every other part, I'll start linking those at the top if you want to check out parts 1, 2, and 3. This is a little bit different from what we're doing now because, of course, instead of a family of 5, we have a family of 6. And our budget is not $100 a month anymore. It's $65 a week, which sounds like a lot, but it's still $240 a month, and it's a little over $10 per person per week. So we still have a really low, tight budget, but there are 5 adults and 1 teenager in my house, and there are a lot of folks to feed, and we still try to keep our budget narrow. But anyway, so I'm kind of giving you an update, giving you all the details. The method I use is still the same, it's just the numbers have changed. So in part 4, I'm basically talking to you about how to make your groceries stretch. And I know that you all want this advice. And this is a great time to talk about it, particularly this week of Thanksgiving. We're going to have lots of leftovers. And so this will be kind of a conversation that you're having in your head. I have 7 ideas to help you stretch your budget, stretch those groceries. And we're going to start with number 1, which is have soup once or twice a week. Now, I probably have soup at least twice a week. I love soup. I've often said if I do a cookbook, I'm going to do it in volumes because I could never pump out like a huge one all at once. But the first one I want to do is soups because I love soups. They're one of my favorites. And everybody in my house loves my soup. In fact, we're having 2 soups tonight. We're having lentil soup for the vegan folks, and we're having beef and barley soup. I'll link you to that at the top too if you want to try that recipe for the rest of the family. So anyway, soup is great for stretching your grocery budget, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, there's a lot of little bits of ingredients, which is perfect for using up leftovers. I can't tell you how many times when I'm making my menu plan and my schedule, if I make like tacos, everybody does Taco Tuesday, right? We usually make black beans with our tacos, and I almost always have some left over, which means I almost always schedule chili for the next day. Because a lot of those ingredients that we have for tacos, I can toss in a chili pot. Peppers, corn, the beans, all that stuff goes great in a chili pot. So planning soup to follow will use up all those leftovers and make sure that nothing goes to waste in your family. Another great thing about soup is, when we're on a budget, we want to make sure we're getting the most nutrition bang for our buck, right? So the great thing about soup is you can put a lot of great nutritional items into a big old pot, and it's just a big old pot of deliciousness, especially here in the winter where you really want something warm and cozy. Like, who doesn't love a big bowl of soup? So you get the nutritional benefits of it, and you get all the flavors of all of the wonderful ingredients. Another great thing about soup is when you make a big pot of it, and maybe I'm kind of going into something else, but we're going to talk about it anyway. It's great for leftovers. You could actually put it in bags and freeze it, and so it'll last more than one day. A big pot goes a long way, and it's really great for lunches the next day as well. So to me, soup is like the first and most important thing. If you don't have soups on your menu plan, you're missing out. You need to have them at least once a week and fill your bodies up with all of the goodness. Make sure you're not wasting the leftovers, and kind of stretch everything out with a little bit of liquidy bone broth and goodness, nutritional punch to get your bodies going. It's good. It's good. Another way we stretch our budget is casseroles. Now, casseroles are the classic budget stretching dish. Again, just like with soups, you're going to throw a lot of different leftover ingredients into one big pot, but instead of cooking it on a pot with water, you're going to bake it in a pan in the oven. So again, you can take, I love to plan a casserole after a big meal and have leftovers. Of course, this week with Thanksgiving, perfect time to make a turkey casserole when you have turkey and potatoes and the stuffing and all of the little extra ingredients, and you can make a big turkey casserole and it's going to be delicious. So again, using up all the leftover ingredients. Again, you can hide all kinds of veggies in a casserole and make sure you're packing that nutritional punch that you need. And again, you can double it and then freeze 1/2. So then, again, you're making it easy for you to have other dishes in the future without a lot of extra work. And while we're talking about that, tip number 3, of course, is eating the same thing 2 days in a row. Now, I talked about soups and casseroles, and I talked about how a lot of times you can make a double batch. Generally speaking, I will freeze the second one and use it at a separate time. But if you are really tight on your budget, if your numbers are low, like you have got to stretch it to the bone, then I would plan to have one thing one day and then the next day have it again. However, I always try to change it up a little bit because you don't want your family to get bored and feel like, oh, we have to have the same thing the next day just reheated. No. All right, first of all, let me just say one little thing here about leftovers in case people have issues with it. In our house, leftovers are coveted, okay? Those soups and those seasonings and those casseroles have sat and marinated in all that flavorfulness for another 24 hours, and it is almost always better the second day. So if anybody complains about it, I'm shocked because it's always super delicious. So it's probably just a negative mindset. You got to change that mindset and have that positive experience when you have the leftovers. But in terms of eating something the second day in a row, you know, if you look at just the act of looking at something 2 days in a row, you kind of feel like that sameness and it starts to feel boring. You don't want it to be boring. You need to mix it up just a little bit. So if you had meatloaf one day, the next day, instead of just serving meatloaf again, you want to have like meatloaf sandwiches with gravy. Or another thing that you could do, spaghetti. If you had spaghetti one night, the next day you could do baked spaghetti. So you want to make sure that you're doing the best that you can to kind of switch it up a little bit and make it more exciting, which you can do with soups. For instance, I spoke about chili. So the first night we have tacos, right? And then we're going to use all the leftovers to make chili. And then we have some leftover chili. What are we going to do? We're going to have baked potato bar and put some chili on it. So we're going to make sure we're using it every single day, and that stuff is stretching out until every single bit of it is gone. But we're not having the same thing all the time. We're changing it up a little bit and making it more exciting. And that's just how we do it. So my fourth tip is to use meat as a complement instead of as the whole dish. So one of the biggest questions that I get on my video, the update that I did on how I feed my family of $5 for $100 every month. I'll link that at the top too if you guys haven't checked that out, but I'm sure you have if you're here. Anyway, one of the biggest questions that I get is I talk about using 1 leg quarter for my whole family. And people are always confused about that. And to me, it's crazy because if you've ever taken 1 leg quarter and cooked it and peeled all the meat off, you end up with a big old pile of meat. And it's so much more than you actually expect it to be. If you sat down and just ate a thigh and a leg, you're going to think, oh, I'm still hungry. That's not very much. But if you sat and peeled it all off and shredded it and made a big pile of meat, you would see how all of that meat could go into one big soup pot and make a whole pot of soup. It actually makes a lot of sense if you've actually broken it down that way. But I think part of the reason why we're okay with it is that we have that expectation that meat is the complement rather than the dish itself. Our family really loves Asian dishes, and I think that's one of those things within the Asian culture is that meat is not always the star of the show. You know what I mean? It's there for flavor, it's there to enhance the dish, but it's not the dish itself. And I think that in our culture, we have this mindset that's got to be a big slab of meat or it's not really a meal. And I think that's part of the confusion, maybe even the unhealthiness. I mean, I'm just saying, in our culture that we feel that way. I will, on occasion, serve people a steak. I will, on occasion, make a whole roast, but it doesn't happen all the time. And I think that you have to make sure that when you make meals, you are not always giving big old bunches of meat. How I cut the meat is, generally speaking, I will cut the amount of meat in a recipe in half. And then I'll double the vegetables because I don't want to lessen the nutritional benefits. I want to make sure everybody gets the nutrition that they need. And again, in terms of meat, everybody's like, oh, you need lots of protein. Well, the amount of protein that you would need is the approximate size of a deck of cards. So it's actually a very small amount for each person, about 4 ounces. And of course you get protein from other sources too, like oatmeal and beans and rice, which we have pretty often. So all of those things just add up. You're not going to be missing any nutritional benefits. In fact, you'll be getting nutrition in a different form because people definitely aren't getting enough vegetables. So we're going to double the vegetables to make sure we have some bulk and fiber. Gotta have your fiber. And then we're also going to cut the meat in half. So we have 6 grown people in my family. I already mentioned that. 6 people. I have 4 grown men in this house. 4 grown big men in this house. And if I'm making, say, tacos, I only ever make 1 pound of beef. That's it. 1 pound of beef with taco seasoning. And then the rest of the tacos are filled with actual vegetables, with actual filling. So, we're not going to have a whole ton of meat. And they know that. So, like today, I made the beef and barley soup, which I can make with a roast. But today, I made it with a steak. And it was a good sized steak. Don't get me wrong. It was a steak from our grass-fed beef. And it was a good sizable piece. But it's about maybe a third of the size of a roast. So, but it's still going to add that beef flavor that you need to make the beef and barley soup, and the bulk of the nutrients from that soup are going to be in all of the other great ingredients. So again, expand your mind a little bit and just consider, maybe I could cut back the meat just a little bit and try it. Take a dish. A great suggestion is a casserole or spaghetti if you add beef on that. Any of those things, chili's another great option. Use meat less, like use half the amount you normally do and see if people notice. I mean, you're not going to be able to do that with meatloaf. I mean, you got to have a couple pounds of meatloaf. But if it's something where meat is an ingredient, just try it. Just give it a try and see how that works for you. I bet no one will notice, and you're going to be glad that you did. Okay, here is another suggestion, which I actually didn't make as a separate note on the blog post, but I'm going to mention it here. Learn to use seasoning. I can't tell you how many times people message me because they're so bored with their diet. They don't really know what direction to go. They're like eating the same things over and over, and their family's tired of it. They hate the menu planning thing because it's just driving them nuts. And I think part of the reason is they're just not willing to experiment. So you got to experiment. You got to experiment with your recipes. You got to experiment with your seasonings for sure. Because I'm telling you right now, I think part of the biggest problem, the reason why people are going out to eat, the reason why they feel like the things that they cook at home aren't great, is because they're not seasoning it well. Learning to cook is part of it. And if you're going to actually stretch your groceries, if you're going to make it last, if you're going to take something that you use one day and use it the next day, you got to learn how to season things. You got to learn how to take some taco meat and change it into chili. You got to learn how to take your meatloaf and make it in a whole different level so that it can be like a meatloaf sandwich. You got to take everything from one and make it another, and you're going to do that with seasonings. You got to experiment. Get on Pinterest, people. Get on Pinterest and look and see what you can learn about food and how it's made. I honestly, almost every single day, and I love to cook, and I cook all the time, but almost every single day, if I'm, like today I wanted to make lentil soup, and I had an idea of what I was going to do for lentil soup, but I still went on Pinterest and I looked at a couple of different lentil soup recipes to see, is there another way I could try it? And is there something else that other people are recommending? Just to kind of keep abreast of maybe what other people are thinking tastes good. And honestly, I got some really ideas. I saw one recipe that included potatoes, and I've never had a lentil soup with potatoes in it. I'm thinking about trying it. Maybe. I don't know. I haven't decided. But it's just like, could that be an option? Could that be something that would add flavor? They also add smoked paprika with it, which I'm a huge fan of smoked paprika. And it was supposed to be more like a stew-like lentil soup. I'm thinking I would like maybe a stew-like lentil soup. But all of this is just to say you've got to learn. You've got to experiment. You've got to try something. You've got to be willing to make it and it not be your favorite, but you're still going to eat it anyway. And the next time you'll know to try a different seasoning. But you got to go for it. Give it a try. It's not just salt and pepper. But make sure you're getting them seasonings on a good price. Side note. Okay, so the next one is use inexpensive fillers. Now, all right, here's the deal before y'all get stressed about this inexpensive filler thing. This is the whole deal. When we're taking away a lot of that meat, you're going to need to have some inexpensive fillers there to bulk it up. A great thing that people use instead of ground beef, they'll use cooked lentils. So like half the ground beef, half cooked lentils. Great option and much less expensive and probably a little bit better for you. So there's a lot of other options. I think brown rice is another great option. It's got a lot of great fiber in it, and my family loves it. Most kids love rice. So rice is another good thing to get a little bulk in there. Of course, it goes without saying, you want to bulk things up with as many vegetables as you can. Whatever vegetables are on sale, use them. Buy them and use them. And fill everything up with whatever you can. This week I got some broccoli. I got it on sale, and I'm trying to put broccoli in everything I can. And I had limited options for my dinners because, of course, with Thanksgiving week, we have very specific. I have church supper one night. We had a bonfire at the homeschool group one night. And then, of course, actual Thanksgiving dinner, which will have plenty of leftovers. So but I got all this broccoli. So I'm like, how can I use broccoli? So all of our lunches, I'm like, we're having broccoli fried rice. We're having broccoli and potato soup. Like, I'm filling it up because broccoli was on sale and broccoli was good for you. So this week, it's our inexpensive filler. That's what was on sale. We're taking it, we're breaking it down, we're putting it broccoli and everything. It's a broccoli fest. So for lunches, the family is going to have like broccoli and cheese baked potato or something. I don't know. It's going to be broccoli like crazy because that is our filler this week and we're going to make it work. So another thing, this is my husband's favorite thing to fill. He loves omelets. He's a huge omelet fan. So he likes all the different kinds of omelets, but that's great for using fillers because you can have pizza omelet, you can have Southwest omelet, you can have an Asian omelet, you can have a regular breakfast omelet. Like, there's a million ways you can go with an omelet, and you're basically just going to take whatever ingredients you have and fill it up and make something good. And of course, there's the go-to fillers, and it makes so much sense when you think about it from the restaurant point of view. What do restaurants fill you up with before you eat? Salad and bread. And people feel very negatively about bread. I think you need to make good bread choices, but I don't think you need to feel negatively about bread as a whole. There's some good quality bread, or you can home make bread. Both are very inexpensive, and bread has a lot of filling quality depending on how you make it. So there's not necessarily a negative thought about bread. Bread, I think, is good for you, but don't neglect the salad portion as well, okay? And how we make salads is exactly the same way. I'll get whatever's on sale, and that's what we have salads with. And I try to mix it up a little bit. Like, I'll take a couple ingredients this day and a couple ingredients that day and mix it up and go back and forth. But, salad's a great way to bulk up. One of my favorite thing to do is that famous soup, salad, and breadsticks that you get at very popular restaurant for lunches. And you know why people go get that? Because it's warm and it's filling and it meets all your nutritional needs and it's healthy. And guess what? All of those are fillers. That's why restaurants do it, because they can make money off of it because they're fillers. But the benefit to us is it's inexpensive and it's filling us, yes, but it's also meeting all of our nutritional needs. So fillers that are inexpensive, not low quality, but inexpensive, and we're going to use those to make sure we're filling up our bodies and our souls and our nutritional needs. You're going to hear me say that over and over again. I'm such a mom. All right, last one. Ration. And whenever I say this, everyone acts like I'm so mean. Listen, I am not talking about rationing fruits and vegetables, okay? My goal is always to get as many fruits and vegetables as I can based on the amount of money that I have. So I will go in and find what's on sale, and we will load up, and I'll get as many fruit and veg as I can. If you can watch my most recent grocery haul. I'll put it up here. It was a live one, and I got a ton of stuff. But I'm getting whatever's on sale, and that's what we're eating that week. So when I'm talking about rationing, I'm generally talking about snacks. Okay, one example that I gave in my blog post is chips. If I bring a bag of chips in this house and I do not ration it, I do not say, don't touch this or only have this much, a bag of chips is going to be gone in like 5 minutes with all these grown guys in this house. I mean, you have to say to them, listen, you can't have all those chips. They got to go over this amount of time. And if you have to, put them in individual baggies when you get home. But regardless, you might need to ration the snack foods. I'm sorry. Not everybody's comfortable with doing that, but I am, because, when you have so much money, you got to make it stretch, and you want to make sure it goes all the way through. Usually, like I said, snacks, the things that are not nutritionally beneficial, but something people might enjoy having throughout the week. I have an example in here, and I took a friend shopping. She asked me to go with her and help her save money. And so we went shopping, and she was grabbing some snacks. And I asked her, I think there were 5 people in her household at that time, and I think she'd grabbed a few boxes of snacks and went to grab one. I don't remember her whole situation. But she was grabbing the snacks, and she'd already hit more than 1 snack per person per day in my mind. I was like, well, how many boxes of snacks do you need for your family? And she said, I don't know, maybe 1 box a day. 1 box of snacks a day. And she didn't really think that was a big deal. And I'm not being critical of her. I understand. She had a smaller child, and she just wasn't thinking about it. She was just trying to make sure there were snacks in the house. And I said 1 a day. Well, so that's like 30 boxes a month. And at the average of $2.50 per snack box, that was $75, budget a month. That's a lot of money. So then she started thinking about it, and she said that her little one eats, a box a week. And I said, well, for all your family members, that's 20 boxes a month. So that's a little bit less than 1 box a day. And she said, okay, well, me and my little one, we share. So that ends up being 4 boxes per week. So that's 16 boxes a month. So that cut it down a little bit. But the thing is that she was prepared to buy up to 30 boxes, but really they didn't really need that much, but I'm just saying, and according to their rationale, she needed to get about 16 boxes, and that's almost half. So you really have to consider exactly how much you're willing to spend on that per month, not just in terms of finances, but in terms of your family's health and your nutritional goals, because 16 boxes of snacks in a month, to me, feels like a lot. And I think when we were saying it out loud, she kind of felt like it was a lot. But because she wasn't thinking about it in terms of the whole month, it didn't seem like that big a deal when she was shopping. Does that make sense? So the thing with snacks is you have to get a really good grasp on what exactly you think is acceptable for your family to consume during the week. Generally speaking, I don't get a lot of snacks. Now, I got a ton of grocery hauls. You can go back and look at them and you'd be like, Amanda, you got all these snacks. I really try to limit them. And I usually end up buying them for Brianna, let's be honest. But I really try to limit it to only just the smallest portion of my budget, because it's the least important thing that we buy. And so a lot of the things that we do now with adult, older people in our house is a lot different than when I had smaller kids and I really wanted to make sure that I guarded their nutrition. So now I'm a little bit lighter on the rules. Little bit. Some people think I'm still a little bit strict, but I'm really a lot lighter than I was when they were younger. When they were younger, I was very particular about it, and I really didn't want to waste money. And especially if your budget is super tight, you don't want to waste your money buying a bunch of sugar and a bunch of snack things, because all of those things deplete your children's nutrition, and you want to make sure they're happy and healthy and you're doing the best that you can for them with the money that you have. So my rule used to be, when the budget was super tight, that the only snacks we would get were the ones that we made ourselves. And so that kind of limited us to only having like 1 snacky thing a week, maybe 2. And we had to make it ourselves from the ingredients that we had. So in my mind, it was a little bit better to make it from our own ingredients and know exactly what was going into it. But I was basically trying to do the best that I could to, number 1, stretch the money, and number 2, make sure that I wasn't doing anything with my money that was going to be detrimental to their health. Does that make sense? Because all of this food stuff that we're doing is all about health, really, ultimately. We're trying to make sure our kids are fed, and we're trying to make sure they have everything that they need. And we're trying to make sure that we can do it based on the financial situation that we have. So we've got to be wise about it and make the best choices. So we've got to consider sometimes that we have to make those tough choices and do things like ration and do things like stretch things, just to make sure we're getting as much as we can into all the bellies that we can, and using the least amount of money that we can. So anyway, those are my tips. That's it. 7 little tips, but I hope it was helpful to you in order to help you to save money on your grocery budget. Come back next week and we will be doing part 5. It'll be the very last part of this series, and it's going to be like final ideas, not about specifically stretching groceries, but just broad ideas on how you can do the best you can with the budget that you have. You definitely want to come back for that. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Come back this week. I've got lots of money saving tips and ways to help you and your family, and we're going to share a little bit about our family. And of course, tomorrow night we're going to be live, my husband and I, and you can ask us any questions that you want. So come back and hang out with us. We'll be live. This week it'll actually be closer to 9 p.m. because we have a church supper tomorrow, so it'll be after that when we go live. But come hang out with us. Ask us any questions that you want about saving money on groceries. We'll try to answer them. And that's that. So, all right, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Hey, thanks for watching. I'm really glad you came to visit us here at the Fundamental Home. Make sure if you enjoyed this video that you click the like button, and also click subscribe right below me for more videos coming into your inbox all the time. And also, if you enjoy social media, we've got links up at the top here for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, all the other fun things. And check out thefundamentalhome.com for more information about what we're doing all the time and how we do it, because there's way more details there. And here over to the right, we have some videos that I recommend. So thanks again for coming by, and we'll see you next time. Bye.